Welcome to the Uncharted Podcast. I'm your host and founder of Uncharted, Mark Rhodes, and in this podcast we discuss everything pertaining to personal, physical and professional high performance for those who want to create a life on their terms and discover the best version of themselves. Join us for discussions on how you can maximize your performance and discover uncharted mental, physical and global territories. Not only that, but how to create the freedoms in your life that will allow you to spend your time how, where, and with whom you want to. If you like this episode, please remember to like, subscribe, and tell a friend. And I really do hope you enjoyed this one. Let's get stuck straight in. So, welcome to the Uncharted Podcast. I'm actually meeting for the first time, which is my preferred way of doing it. Welcome, Mr. Will Simpson. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Mark. Yeah, finally. We were just saying just now. We met online sort of 2 years ago, and I just asked to use a picture of your hands with one of my bars.
If I could be a model, anyone could do anything.
Yeah.
But let's get straight into it then. So essentially, who are you? What is Real Meal? And let's cover that for people that don't know yet.
Okay. Hello, listeners, everyone. My name is Will Simpson. I'm currently serving in the British Army. Father of two. Brand new baby boy, sort of 10 weeks old now. And yeah, been in the army for about 10 years now. So just hit major now, so things I should sort of know what I'm doing within the army. But effectively came up with Real Meal as it's something that I wanted to see within the army, and it's effectively a meal replacement bar. Long story short, it's not a protein bar, which at the time, and this was maybe 4 years ago now, when I first had the idea, there was a load of protein bars out there. I did not want one of those. I didn't want the high sort of sugary and just carbohydrate, like flapjack type thing. I wanted something that could effectively replenish you, help heal you, and then get you good to go for the next day. And that's where the idea came from, basically off the back of attempted selection. And I saw basically what we had and what we got given in the morning. And it was basically 10 bins, and you just picked it up in the morning. And I looked, and 7 out of the 10 things were effectively chocolate bars. And I thought maybe things could be different, things could be a bit better.
Yeah, 100%. And they say that good inventions are born out of necessity. I think anyone who's served in a military environment or even been around it will know that the solutions is a loose word in terms of, I think that in America they're probably a little bit further ahead of us with the development of that. They understand that they are athletes, and whilst they're required to perform under adverse conditions, essentially you need to think of nutrition in exactly the same way. And yeah, to the greatest extent, it is either a protein bar, which is inadequate based on what's actually in it from a macronutrient perspective, or a chocolate bar, which is not advisable from a health perspective to keep smashing those into you under extreme conditions. So how did you begin sort of formulating these? Like, where do you start with creating something like the Real Meal bar?
Okay, so effectively I had an idea for some reason in my head. It was an idea that I wanted it 60% carbohydrates, 20 protein, 20 fat. And for some reason, that it just, in my simple mind, they were the right macronutrients for me. And then if it could be vegan and gluten free, then that was an added bonus. So do you know like MyFitnessPal, the Under Armour thing? Yeah. So I basically went back to the kitchen. Obviously, I was sort of licking my wounds after coming off selection, and I went to the kitchen and started just banging in a load of ingredients, and got this totally inedible bar, but it was 600 plus calories, which is the amount of calories I wanted to hit. But then also at the same time, it hit that 60-20-20. It was rank. It was fucking vile, and it was also baked, and it was in 2 bits. But I sort of stuck with it and kept tinkering it. Then COVID happened, and then COVID started, and it gave me a bit of freedom from my normal day to day at work, and I couldn't shake it. It was the first thing I thought about in the morning, last thing I thought about at night. I think my wife at the time thought, what are you even doing? But I was like, I think there is something here. There's nothing in the market like it. And I just kept tinkering, and then did the classic thing of like Google how to bring a nutrition bar to market. And there are these things, all of a sudden, there are things called, food scientists out there whose job is to literally refine your idea and your concept. So I Googled it, rang the first one, happened to be in the middle of London, like eye-wateringly expensive, but they were brilliant, great team. And then the first one was actually this one, the blueberry and almond, and that was 36 iterations of to and fro. Yeah. And then the cacao and peanut butter was 34. Obviously paying for each iteration. So, but the thing is, I didn't want it crumbly, I didn't want it too soft. And then if you change one thing, then the macros are whacked out of balance. Yeah. So then you sort of go back, refine it slightly, and they were coming up with great ideas. Like I was sticking honey in. It was like, I thought that would be a great binder. And they were like, "What are you doing? That's why you can't chew it." So they was like, "Have you thought of date paste? Blah blah blah," and they came up with my sort of guidance, a fairly tasty, and you've had enough of them. Hopefully they're all right. And it's been refined, and then we had the 2 first bars. I've got a picture of the sort of 2 first bars, and that was about 2.5 years ago now.
Yeah, and it seems to me, from the outside at least, that in those 2.5 years since, I guess, bringing them to market formally, it's just gone through the roof, which is good to see. And obviously it still feels like you're scratching the tip of the iceberg, and there's a lot of people that are yet to discover them. And from my perspective, I want to help as many people discover them as practicable, because these have supported me through mountain snowy marathons in Norway, the Marathon de Sable, the jungle, and they have not failed in any single one of those environments. And those are arduous environments. Like the jungle, you've got altitude to contend with, which can change like assimilation from your gut. You've got the heat and humidity, same in the desert, and all those things can really fuck with your gut's ability to deal with nutrients. But I haven't had any issues at all with the Real Meal bars. So I was like, all the clients in Uncharted Performance kind of get put onto them. Not against their will, but they get suggested, hey, like when we're doing longer courses, when we're doing arduous events and races, you're going to need something more substantial than just gels or chews. And this is what I do and how I utilize them. So yeah, it's really, really good to see. And I guess for you, what do you see the future of Rumo as?
Quickly, I'll first say thank you, because it's designed with people like you, and doing things that you've just mentioned in mind. And it's wicked to see that there are people using it as it sort of should be, in the places where it should be. And yeah, you said you scratched the surface. I've sort of bootstrapped this at the moment. I haven't taken on any investment, so there's been zero marketing, if you like, and it's just been through word of mouth, which is it's a good place to be, but it's meant that the momentum has been slow. But it's been, I've seen these last 2 years as almost like a soft launch, in that it's been used by some of the more elite units within the military, as well as those on selection itself. So it's, for me, if they're sort of repeat business, it's sort of proving a concept, and I think it has done. And having just completed the All Arms Commando course at the ripe old age of 34, not recommended at 34. That the boys and girls, were smashing them, and it was just great. It was great to see. Nothing gave me more sort of a prouder moment when you just look around after an action and everyone's just like nailing one. So yeah, the future though, good news is it's going to be stocked in Cotswold Sport as of January. Initially 31 out the 92 stores. But for me, that was 2.5 years ago, that was the number one store for me. And I remember writing down five bricks and mortar stores, and that was the one. And to have, it's a sort of weird, funny story in that on the course just now, which I've just finished, my phone just kept going off, and we were in the middle of like a CQB lesson, and I sort of, when we got a moment, just looked, and there was these 4 missed calls from this unknown number. Rang them back, and it happened to be one of the buyers from Cotswolds. And they're like, "We've just come across one of your bars in the warehouse. We really like it. We're thinking about stocking it." I was like, I sent these sort of a year ago. Why are you just seeing them now? And anyway, they happened to be just put aside, and thankfully someone had picked them up and took them quite well. So it was me. That was probably the fourth box that I sent them with a handwritten letter. It's been a lot of that. It's been a lot of me sort of gifting bars, hopefully getting the traction.
But to your point, like, it is a really, really good place to be, because whilst, a lot of organizations and corporations look at investment as, sort of the golden ticket, I'm a huge believer, and this is very true in the coaching space, but I think in all businesses, is that there's 2 types of people. There's singers and there's microphone technicians. So singers are like, right, I'm just going to focus on what I do being fantastic, and people will organically want to hear or see or consume more of that. And then you've got microphone technicians who are like, my product's not great, but can I find the way to turn up the volume so more people hear about it anyway?
Yeah.
Whereas, you've obviously got a great product. And a lot of people that I speak to, I was out in the mountains a couple of weeks ago climbing, and I handed it over to one of the instructors, and they were like, there's fucking how many calories in this? And they can't compute that, like, it can be such a complete solution in such a small thing. So, it's good to see that it's being used so well, because I've spent a lot of time in the States. And to your point about, the military horror bags that you get given on the hills, like, it is all just sugary processed crap. And if you know anything about the quality of varying proteins and amino acid levels, and, the digestibility of various sources, like, everything in there checks out, versus, you go to the States, for example, and it'd be high fructose corn syrup stuffed in there.
Yeah.
You've got some different kind of nasties and oils. You've got a really, really low quality of protein going in there. So yeah, it's good to see it actually like putting product first above just margins, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. But if to make it a viable and a bigger business, I need to turn the microphone up a bit. I need some type. Yeah, exactly. Hopefully now it's been utilised by the right people and proven by the right people, and then definitely to your point, I think it's blindly done it the right way around, sort of proven the concept, and now just need to switch the microphone up, which I think hopefully Cotswold, so the average Joe can sort of get their hands on, because at the moment it's almost fluke if they come across it, whether they listen to your podcast, see X, Y, and Z post about it. But what's wicked, like fantastic for me to see is where it's been used, across the Atlantic rowing, up Mount Everest, doing some of your mad marathon des Sables. There's 5 or 6 of the guys doing it this year who had them, and just to see it there is I don't, not massive numbers, but it's great to see.
Yeah, and again, it speaks to the value of well respected over well known, and obviously if you do it the other way around, it's really hard to achieve. But if you get the respect, then obviously you'll be known as a result of that. So I put out a question, like a Q&A sticker on the Instagram stories prior to you coming on. And I was really curious about what people would ask you if they got the opportunity to sit down and have a conversation with you. And one of the biggest, in fact, the question that came up most frequently was like, okay, so 34, recently father of 2, but father of 1 before that, married, going on the very, very arduous All Arms Grando course, running a business. The main question was how? Like, how is that? How is it happening?
I think, well, you've said it a lot of time on your podcast before. No man's an island. It does sound a bit cliche, but I've got Jess, my wife, and I actually spoke to her last night about it, because I was getting up ready to come up here, and I was doing last bits of actual work, army work, and then doing some real meal stuff, and she just had the children. So whilst it's not a direct assistance with the business itself, and she's not sort of getting new business, she's allowing me the space to do so. I've got it wrong though, fairly drastically wrong. And there was a time where I just started instructing at Sandhurst, platoon commanding at Sandhurst. So it's a brand new job. Sienna, our firstborn, was she was one, so and she was just all over the place, just wanted our attention. And I was getting the first sort of traction really with the business. And we just moved to an army quarter, having just sold our house. So there's all these things going on, these plates and plates. Also, I was at the same time training for an Ironman, and it was a perfect storm. And I remember getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning because I couldn't sleep. I was like, right, let's go and do my long run now. Come back at 5, and finished at 5 before the baby woke up, and then I was baggage for the rest of the day, and I could not really be effective at work, at home. I was getting ratty with Jess. I was like, we just need to, I need to slow down, and that has been a constant issue. I think you could, if you're fairly capable, you can spin 8, 9, 10 plates, but if you're given the 11th, you are going to struggle. And it's about having people close to you, identifying that, and you yourself looking at yourself thinking, actually, I'm not sleeping here. Am I being effective at my primary job, which is work? Could I be way more effective if I just do less and take things out? And it was a matter of prioritizing things, getting a balance with fizz. I'll use that as an excuse, if I'm honest. I did, and I thought, well, I'll clear my mind and go for a long 2-3 hour run. It was absolutely rubbish. I was completely off my feet. Just
exhausting yourself to the point where you don't have the capacity to worry about the other problems anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I remember a sort of a real poignant moment for me was Sienna, our daughter at the time, asked for a certain, I can't remember what it was, a meal, and I lost it. I could because we didn't have it in, and then I couldn't compute really what I was going to get her and that could satisfy her need at the moment. And something like that, as small as that, I was thinking, right, something's up here. So I've dialed it down, but it's peaks and troughs, and when there is something to be something to chase, whether professionally, within the business, at home, Ironman, whatever it is it's about acknowledging that and really prioritizing your time. So really long story short is prioritizing your time and energy, and knowing that doing more is not necessarily being better.
Achieving more, 100%. And I think everyone who's listening to this, who either has a home life in any capacity, or especially children, will definitely resonate with those closest to you are the unfortunately ones who take the brunt. And it's just the ability then to step back and say, right, is everyone else's fault or is it me?
Yeah.
And how do I need to deal with that? And also, using, if it's not training, then work as a distraction. That's something I've been guilty of in the past as well. Like when things haven't been functioning and firing as they should at home, it's very easy to then be like, oh, I'm busy with work, and then just really go into the bunker, and you're just distracting yourself because it feels like a legitimate excuse, but it's actually an insidious form of procrastination rather than looking at the problem as a whole and saying, right, like, what am I not doing well? Am I happy with the situation? How can I intervene with that? It's also, I think, really positive to hear that, you can talk about, I got it wrong in this way, I overstretched with this, I overcommitted to this, because I think all of us are guilty at some point, and I know a lot of the listeners are, of hearing success stories from guys like yourself and being like, oh, he must be a fucking demigod, like he's an absolute beast, admin ninja, everything's always taken care of, everything's perfect. And it's very, very refreshing to hear someone talk with a degree of honesty and be like, no, I've got it wrong, like I've snapped at the kid, I've not been present with this, I've struggled with that. And that's what I've always tried to keep front and center, as a flavor of authenticity. So I think that's really, really valuable coming from you. Yeah.
Did you have anyone who checked you? Because Jess checked me. Did your partner, did your friends check you as well?
Yeah. So I'm very, very fortunate. My head of operations inside the program is a fantastic leader, and it will be identified. And then also, my partner at the time, he's made no bones about just initiating conflict and being like, no, this is the reality. I feel like I'm fourth on the list and I'm not satisfied with that. Like, what are we going to do about it? And then also, I've had mental performance coaches and even therapists in the past who will just, through Socratic questioning, will bring me to the realization of I've gone into the bunker again here. And I think guys like you and I, and again, many of the guys that we coach, that's our default. is right, if everything's not how we want it to be, find something to get stuck into and just go fucking head first.
Yeah.
Like really submerge yourself in it, and maybe we can outwork the problem. And as you said, to your point, where there's undulations and peaks and troughs, oftentimes it ends up being cyclical. Like and our job as coaches is we can't really erode, like completely delete that cycle. It's always going to happen. It's just to raise the awareness, so we're seeing it trending earlier, and then to minimize the disturbance that's caused by it. So we can sort of act on it quicker and more effectively.
I think that's good. Yeah, good to hear. I think as well, like that was the first sort of that was the perfect storm, and I think you'll get that sort of awareness through the experience, and now not that I've got it nailed down at all, but I think that I am aware and I know I'd need to do something. The challenge now is doing something about it. Yeah. So, I mean, there's no way I should be going to Sweden next week to do Ironman. There's no way, but I'm still going to do it, and I'll probably maybe pay for it a bit sort of afterwards when I'm exhausted and start ICSC, blah. But it's at least the first stage is having the awareness. At the time, I was like, right, let's just double down on this. Let's work. Let's like 4 hours sleep's probably enough. 3 hours sleep maybe, and it's just totally unsustainable.
Yeah, 100%. And again, we work with a lot of guys from military backgrounds where the indoctrination is my weapon, my kit, myself. But what's lost in the context there is that's for short periods of time when you're on exercise or you're deployed. Outside of that, you pretty much need to invert it. Like to your point, you need to come first, and the greatest priority is to retain the ability to prioritize. And if our time is so congested and our energy is so compromised, job's fucked. Yeah, because you are the asset. So how do we find ways to protect that asset?
Yeah. I think as well, you've had I'm sure you've had days, maybe weeks, that are just things are happening, like you're sparking, everything seems sort of fairly easy, and you're being effective, and then those moments, and it's few and far between, annoyingly, but when you're just on it, you sort of realise what you did before, and maybe it was after you'd taken like a decent rest, or you'd been on holiday, or you'd seen some friends, and you'd sort of been training for a bit, or whatever it is, and you've had that rest and recuperation. You can sort of attack it again, rather than let's just grind it out.
Yeah, and 100%. That's a question we often ask to our guys: is when are you at your best? And if they don't have an immediate answer to that, it's like, cool, well, there's an opportunity for us to do some work on this by looking at reflective practice. So journaling gets misconstrued, but journaling comes from the root word journal, to be a journalist. So if you're just being a journalist of your own life on a daily basis, like basically a stop 5, like, what was the main points from today? Where did I do well? What were the opportunities to get better? What am I going to carry forward? Then we basically end up with like a user manual for you, and then you can go back through and say, well, when was it my best? And to your point, we can then look at the trend and be like, well, I was sleeping really, really well. I was getting like maybe a short breath work in every day. My training was consistent, but not overexerting. And I was really functioning on and firing on all cylinders. So how do we now get more of that back into our daily cadence as much as is practicable? Sometimes, to your point, like, it's really, really valuable to know that when your back's against the wall, you can just dig out blind and get the task done. The challenge is that's very, very addictive, because you're firing on all cylinders, you're off your tits on caffeine and adrenaline, getting stuff done. It feels awesome. Then day by day that degrades. You wake up, feeling like you've not been to bed. More caffeine goes in, sleep gets further compromised. And it just, you almost blind to that change. And then before you know it, you're on the bones of your ass again. You're like, how has this gone from being that there to now being out here? So like having people around you who can spot that and say like, hey, is that essential for you to be doing right now? Do you think you should take an afternoon off, for an example? Is really, really valuable, I would say.
I think by the sounds of it, a lot of your audience will know what's good for them. Will know that, regular exercise, whether sort of working hard but not overexerting themselves, right nutrition, blah, hydration, blah, all of that stuff will get you to the sort of the optimum level you want to be. But I also think probably your audience as well, and it's certainly for myself, is, well, let's do it to the extreme. If exercise is good, let's just go hard on the exercise. If nutrition is good, let's be as clean as physically possible. Actually, then things get warped, and you're like, I'm only eating clean. I'm not getting enough calories in. right, working's good. Let's just smash the work. And it's that. You're right. It's the addictiveness side of that, and it's a balance that I still struggle to grapple with, especially when there's sort of like big apples to go and collect. You just think, oh, let's just get that one. But if I want to make the brand as big as possible, those apples are always going to be there. And really, am I enjoying the journey? Otherwise, the whole thing's pointless and futile. And secondly, is my family in a good place, and they're getting a good father or a good husband, which really is the only thing that matters.
100%. And again, really refreshing and very much appreciated for you to kind of communicate with that transparency, because again, we're all very guilty of looking at people and be like, I wish I could have my life more like those, I wish I could be more like that. And it's having the understanding to say, well, are you prepared to pay the price that they have to be at that level of success? And we look at people who are phenomenally successful, commercially very viable, and think, I'd love to be like those. But then what is it like to live their life, be in their mind, deal with those insecurities, feel those challenges, all that sort of stuff? And then ask, well, would we be prepared to make those sacrifices? So for you, obviously knowing, well, I do want to grow the brand, but I also want to have fun doing it. That's a non-negotiable. And I'm not going to sacrifice, the sanctity of my home and my relationships and my role as a father. And that's also a non-negotiable. And I think that's starting to become more commonplace, which is good to see, as opposed to even 10 years ago, especially when I first got into the coaching game. People were like, I will throw everything under the bus just to be successful in this. And I think now we're starting to realize, probably lockdown had a part in that, and people realized the liberties you could have when working from home, and you didn't have to go through the grind set and all that sort of stuff. And I hope that as a coaching organization and as the coaching industry in general, we're starting to chip away at that narrative that you've got to really suffer in order to generate success. You've got to have it. You've got to have the legs, and you've got to have the drive and the determination. But you've also got to be aware that if the journey is not fun, you never, it's that old quote, isn't it? The man who loves walking is always going to go further than the man who loves the destination. So having fun in that process is obviously allowing you to keep going even when the chips are down.
I totally agree with all that. I think as well, giving yourself some space, and then it becomes like another sort of like ice bath therapy, but giving yourself actual space to go and almost do nothing. And I'm guessing your audience don't do that. A lot of them don't do that, but it was, the whole idea came from lockdown, and that was when I was almost enforced, as we all were, to sort of relax and just take a step back, because there was nothing else. And that's where I could not shake this feeling, and that's where the creative side of it came out, and that's where I was coming up with the brand name, and I was coming up with what I wanted to look, taste and feel like, and all of this stuff. And I can guarantee if I was just moving on to the next thing, it wouldn't have come about. And I'd say there's a lot to be said to allow that curiosity to sort of flourish if you give yourself some space.
I think creativity, because a lot of the guys that listen to the pod and the guys that we work with are sort of the leadership level in various corporations or organizations or even the military. And you've got to look through history. There's a great book called Stillness is the Key by Ryan Holiday. He quotes a lot of the great leaders, the most influential people in history who were known for creating space to really sit with an idea and come up with a solution. Like Winston Churchill, if you gave him a hard task, he'd go and sit in the bath. He'd go and sit with that and create space. And it's something that I used to really, really struggle with. And I think it came from a deep-seated sense of I'm not doing enough, I'm not working hard enough, etc. But whenever you have responsibility for strategy or creativity, you can't understate the importance of even sometimes hours per day where you have just nothing to do, and taking yourself out of stimulus and response of this person's asked for this, I need to respond, that's got to be done, I need to finish that task, taking yourself out of that stimulus and response, even just for small pockets throughout the day, 10-15 minutes, and sitting with that consciousness and then letting an idea kind of percolate, and that's it, that's the solution to that challenge. But again, you're now living in a world that expects and demands your attention at all times. And then you've got, when you're not working, there's fucking social media and all this sort of stuff cracking off. Would you say since lockdown, you've created any robust system or way in which you prompt yourself to dress back and take that space or create that space?
No, if I'm brutally honest, look, I haven't. And it's almost the idea of probably, and it's probably my partner telling me, or even mum and dad saying, well, you are looking like you've lost weight, or you're looking completely like frazzled. And it was a moment where I think the realization was I sort of read about it, burnout, and when people throw it around willy-nilly, but again, pretty honestly, I got diagnosed, if you like, with burnout, and it was only really until the doctor told me you need to do X, Y, and Z, or don't do X, Y, and Z to really recover from this, was really the impetus to sort of, because if my wife's saying it, like, okay, yeah, Roger, but if a doctor is telling you it's going to help with everything, then maybe start doing it. Then I felt better. I mean, it took a while. Then I felt better, and it was, straight back to it. It really probably is a bit of an addiction.
Yeah, and I think that's the best word for it. If not addiction, compulsion, to just be doing and moving forward. Yeah, and I agree. Burnout is thrown out far too easily. I hear people say, "I feel a bit burnt out today." That doesn't exist. No. You're just a bit tired, which is fine. Let's call it what it is. And for most people, they're not burnt out, they're bored. So they've got no energy to get out of bed in the morning, and they're perpetually uninspired and demotivated. But if I came and said, hey, like, we're going to the mountains tomorrow, I need you up at 03, they'd jump out of bed. Okay, that's not burnout. Burnout, as you know, is like absolutely ball bagged.
You couldn't really string sentences together. Real, like, horrific brain fog. Some simple tasks, it's like sort of the end, like, make a cup of tea, like, oof, right, sugar, where's that? Should that go in first? And like small stuff like that, as well as like the bigger stuff like your hormone levels, etc. Didn't think we were gonna get this deep today. I thought we were just talking about real milk. But that's where I think it's quite important to be open and honest, because I imagine the guys you got in your program would be, tinkering around the edges, and some of them may have got into genuine burnout. But I think if there's key things that should be fun, like seeing your mates for beers, or playing with your children, and that all of a sudden becomes a bit of a chore, or big chore, and you just don't want to do it, that's a clear sign.
100%. I burnt out the second time in earnest in the lockdown, because being a remote service provider, all of a sudden the gym's shut, and then we had a lot of clients were like, I've lost my job, so I need to leave, etc. So it was very, very stressful, and it was probably not too dissimilar to yourself, like working legitimately like 18 to 20 hours a day, 7 days a week for about 4.5 weeks. I think I kept that up, and then it was in various different capacities. And even when you weren't working, you were constantly accessible for messages and then all that sort of stuff. And it got to the point where literally I'd get out of bed, go in the kitchen, double espresso down the hatch, shit on the sofa, fall straight back to sleep, and nothing was touching the edges. And even like you'd go to send a text message and you'd be like, that doesn't make sense. And you can't think of the right word. And I'd re-record a voice note literally like 12, 11 times because I couldn't, it wasn't good enough, or it wasn't coherent, and you need to like, I need some time off. Really. And
you almost, I used to think back to the time at playing rugby full time, where I only had the really rugby to focus on, and it was you're training. If you're not training, you're resting. And that was when I was sort of at my peak, and that's when everything was fun. Same at university, like same. Like you're there at Loughborough to play. I was there to basically play rugby, sort of side bit of geography as well. But I was at my best there, where you didn't have all that much to think about, and you could really sort of. At the time you didn't know, but you're having good amount of rest. And now I think certainly within the last 7-8 years, there's almost this sort of hyper productive sort of you've got to be crushing it in all elements of life, and that I felt that sort of pressure. I think going back to your earlier point, have you got sort of strategies in place? What I've learned to do now is to realise that, again, no man's an island, and certainly with business, but also at work as well. There are people just way better than me at certain bits. Like, I've got a trusted group of sort of 4 or 5 people in terms of design, the very small bit of marketing now we're looking to do, distribution and the manufacturing itself. And it's very trusted, and worked with them for a while. And I think that just giving your, and it sounds very army, but like just literally giving your intent and then getting a really good surprise with the outcome that they come up with.
Yeah.
So I'll text or voice note Mia or Ellie, both like on the sort of design. I said, I think we need to change this website, do this, do that. And they're like, they'll come back half an hour later, like, so do you mean this? I was like, yeah, that is way better. Like, that's not what I said. That is bang on, and I would never have thought about that.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. And again, a lot of people who are in either structured leadership in an organization or are building their own thing, it's once again so insidious to be like, well, I'll just do it. It's quicker if I do it myself. No one can do it as well as I can do it. And it's like, right, that's fundamentally a flawed level of belief, and it will take you to the point of exhaustion and burnout, and it will also mean your product or service or business will never be as good as it could be. I can speak very highly of a guy called Mark at Made Studios, who's recently done the rebrand for Uncharted, and it was that same sort of mission command principle of like, this is what I'm looking for, and this is how I want people to feel when they see it, and this is how how I want to communicate that to the market. And he's like, cool, leave it with me. Comes back 2 days later, I was like, that is way better. I had my fucking crayons out, and you've absolutely smashed it. And the same again, even internally with how we coach and stuff. We've got Ben, our head of performance, who is genuinely one of the most skilled and passionate physiologists that I've ever met. And rather than me trying to like get stuck in and fiddle and tinker, it's like, okay, here's what we're trying to achieve with the level of client we're working with. Is that say no more? Comes up with like a performance pathway and a KPI dashboard. And I was like, I would never have had the scope or the ability to do that. And
you just kick yourself like, why didn't I do this earlier?
Why was I holding on to this for so long? Because I was afraid that someone was going to fuck it up, or that it was going to cost even. That's a thing with a lot of business owners. Is it an unneeded cost to pay someone else to do that? I could probably do it myself. Then you look at your day, and it is just a game of Tetris of trying to cram all these varying different tasks in. And it's a never-ending marathon where it just leads to burnout every time.
I think you've got there are genuine like experts there, and if you've got access and built a relationship with them. The story I sort of always tell, and certainly when I was at Sandhurst as an instructor, I sort of tried to give as much sort of experienced life stories to the officer cadets as possible. And when I was talking about sort of mission command, first ever exercise we were on, I was on as a brand new officer, was in California in the Mojave Desert, and I remember I didn't sleep for the first 5 days, and we put this amazing sort of like OP up, sort of interlinked, and we were watching down, and we could see for about 40k, and it was brilliant. I was like so happy in one of the OPs, and one of the corporals at the time came up to me, and this was now in front of most of the troop, and said, "Sir, you're not listening to a fucking thing we're saying. You can't open your eyes, and you're speaking no fucking sense. We've got 4 corporals here. We've got 2 acting sergeants and a sergeant, all been in for a lot longer than you. Let's do a fucking job." I was like, oh, it was in front of some of the troopers. I was like, oh my God. I was like, how to react to this? So I was like, I'll call him Corporal Tom. Just come with me. And we had a chat. I was like, thank you. Really appreciate that. Anyway, I had enforced rest for 8 hours. Slept like an absolute baby. Got a tap on the shoulder from one of the other corporals saying, boss, that's it. We've finished. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, yeah, we've basically pinged all the different targets whilst you've been asleep, and we've stopped the whole battle group that have coming forward. I was like, oh my God, I've missed all that. He goes, no, that's perfect. And it was just a very, very quick, short, sharp lesson of like, just give it to people. Like you can give they know what to do. That's literally their job as section commanders, to do that. And I thought I could do it all, and I was just failing. And it was a very embarrassing, very sort of a very poignant moment for me very early on in my career. But so glad I had it. And telling that story to the officer cadets, I was like, just don't fall foul of it, because you'll piss people off. You'll take away all of their sort of self-worth, if you like, and not allowing them to do their job. Or at the end of the day, it will piss them off, and the result will be nowhere near as good.
Yeah, it's a fascinating lesson. I really, really enjoyed listening to that. I've certainly been guilty on a lesser scale, like myself, like trying to get into various fulfillment-related tasks. And to your point, you disempower the people who are there to do that. Sure. Because you're trying to like fucking be boss man. And it's like, get the fuck out of the way. Yeah. Like, this is my job. I'm here. Like, boss, fuck off. Yeah. And then allowing people to actually do their job, and all of a sudden things actually work. And things go. And did you find it quite difficult from that point on? Because that was a very poignant lesson. But did you still find it difficult to basically delegate in that way? Was it a lesson that took a while to?
I think it was. I'd almost be accused maybe of being slightly too trusting. Yeah. Not too. No. In long. I think that now as a result of that, I've almost gone too far the other way. I think that's maybe attributed to the quality of soldier I've been lucky enough to work with. Certainly at Sandhurst, you get the cream of the crop of the colour sergeants, and they could run the platoon by themselves. Yeah. So there was zero need. And QDG, a huge amount of very, very high quality soldiers there. Yeah. And it was as a result of that lesson, short and sharp, early, it was like, right, that's not how the army works. Obviously learnt about it for a year at Sandhurst beforehand, but it was only until that moment where I implemented it and reaped the rewards. And the end product as a troop was way better, and something I'll definitely take on to be, hopefully when I sort of have my own squadron, empower the sergeant major and the rest of the corporals and sergeants.
Yeah, that's the truth, isn't it? Like, there's a difference between intellectually knowing something and actually trusting your gut and being able to implement that. Like, I know I should delegate. I know people are there to do this job, but I'm still going to kind of get into it. And then obviously a baptism of fire, being like, right, now you actually have to demonstrate that you understand that key skill. Yeah,
it definitely was a baptism. We joke about it quite a lot now, because even at the time he thought he was maybe sort of pushing the boat too much, and maybe, as I say, step out of line. But I was like, it's literally the best thing I could have ever had.
And that's a really interesting point, I guess, on having junior leaders who are happy to initiate conflict. Yeah. Because whether it's in an organisation or whether it's in the military, if your junior leaders aren't happy to stand up, or even feel like they've got a voice to stand up and say, "Boss, this isn't working," then again, like, it just leads everyone down the garden path, and no one's doing their job. And then essentially they're complicit in the fuck up, for want of a better phrase, because they've not put their hand up and said, "Not happy." Like, I don't think this is the best way to do it. So empowering, whether it's in your organisation or even to your point, like Jess, your wife, like empowering her to be like, you're way out of line, this needs to change. Yeah, for sure. Allows the one person to do really well. So, on the topic of rugby, I had Ben Curry in here, obviously fantastic athlete, great rugby player as well. And he was very, very similar. So he just picked up captaincy of Sale, like obviously our local club. And I was like, how do you go about leading on the field? Because he was one of the lesser capped players, one of the younger guys. Yeah. And he was like, I just recognise that I'm not the most experienced. I don't always know what's best. You've got the likes of George Ford on the park. Yeah. Use them. Yeah. Like, let them come to you, listen to their ideas, and actually say, cool, I like that. That's what we're going to do. That's the next attacking play. Like, this is what we need to do as a team, rather than being like, right, I'm going to lead from the front boys and charge. And like, he can make the big hits. He's got the physicality. He knows what he's good at. Yeah. But it's like, use your people and let them, ultimately create the narrative of what's going to now happen.
Yeah. Give them, and sometimes you don't need to, but I'd say the only really thing you need to give them, like, maybe a left and right of arc, and give them their parameters, and then just let them surprise you with the results that they can get and come up with. And also, like, it sounds obvious, but that's why, from the military context, that's why they're in the army. Like, they want to be able to, they promoted. They don't want to be sort of nannied by some like one pip. They want to be making decisions, and they want to be going and do it. I think, but just giving them and then I'd probably say that the buck stops with you. And yes, it might be their idea, it might be their actions that came into it, but you can't then say, oh, well, that was your fault. At the end of the day, if you are the leader, it does stop with you. And you depending on the person, depending on how much rope you give them. But the ultimate end result is you. So
Yeah,
that's why you are the leader, be military or business.
I think that's one of the challenges that people leads people to stray away from leadership or delegation too much, because they're like, oh, but what if they get it wrong? Well, the reality is they might, and you've gotten things wrong in the past as well.
Yeah.
And you would hope that there was an infrastructure in place whereby someone would say, like, good effort for trying.
Yeah.
Like, but this is what we want to do better next time. And people are going to fuck up. Like, people are going to make mistakes. I've made many countless mistakes. Literally countless mistakes in building a coaching enterprise and a coaching business and all that sort of stuff. And as long as you know the intent was there to try, and they gave their utmost, and they were doing their best to be professional, they maybe just failed to acknowledge or see something, then ultimately that's a very valuable learning experience. Is how you handle that. Now you can either completely hamstring someone and make them like nervous for the rest of their time or career with you, or you can empower them and say, what did you learn from that, and how would you do it differently if you did it again? And then they will continue to grow and thrive with that.
I think as well, you've got these guys and girls out there who are military, business, sport, who you look at and think they've got it all nailed out. They've got it. They are almost faultless. At the beginning, and probably throughout, I don't think that they truly, really know what they're doing. Like actually, a lot of people are learning to fly as they fall, and hope that they do fly. And prime example with the business, I'm sort of just cracking on until I'm told otherwise. Like I've got an idea of where I want to take it, and I believe in it, but really, will I actually know if that's the right strategy? Time will tell. I think I've got a good idea, and yes, you can mitigate a lot of the risk through having a solid business plan and getting ideas off people and bouncing ideas off people. But I think the reality is, I think you've really got to just try, like, fail and fail fast.
Yeah, and that's part of what I enjoy with Real Meal. As I think the first time you and I had a correspondence on Instagram, I was like, the reason I'm so drawn to using it as a product, not only because it's good, is because I quite like the story of how it's come to market, and and what the brand is about is, well, like, why can't it be me? And I've got a plan, so let's just work the plan and let's just crack on and see what happens with that. And the fact that it's a good product is obviously a huge bonus as well. Awesome. So if people want to get hold of either your story and listen to more about you, or see more from the company, you've got some marketing kicking off, where can they begin to look in for that?
I think it's going to obviously be in some of the selected cots, or don't know which ones yet, as of Jan, but the best way is to follow social media, so Instagram, Real Meal, and then we've got basically two subscription. I think the subscription is probably the best, because what I would love is to make the brand and a cult's definitely not the right word, but you've seen some other brands do it, and Huel is great for it, even though it pains me to say it. They've got the hooligans, if you like, and they've got a following. Tribe bars, same. But I really want to get like a community of people, and I've said in the past, sort of the outliers, the guys similar to yourself, guys going for these mad expeditions, adventures, guys doing horrific military courses, and I want to get a community going, and I'll say less about that I'll say more about that in the future, but I really want to get a sort of a tribe of people together who regularly use them, make them part of their everyday life. And I think in my head at the moment, it's great. It's been utilised by people doing all these things, but then again, I don't see why people like in the NHS who are busy doctors, teachers who want to spend more time with their pupils. I don't see why this can't be applicable in other people's everyday life, which is maybe not that obvious at the moment.
I mean, first of all, I'd say that the things that I've done pale in insignificance to people who are climbing Everest and going on selection and stuff. Like, just a bit of a hot jog and a walk through the woods. But
don't think so.
I've also said that to a lot of the guys that we work with. If I'm traveling, and I don't know how it's ended up this way, but I now do quite a lot of traveling and international travel through the work. I'll always have a couple of those stashed, in my day sack, because when you're faced with a choice on a short haul flight, you're either going to be in Burger King in the airport or eating some unrecognizable protein source on a flight, or you can just get a Real Meal into you. It's like, cool, I'm going to trust that one. Or if I've got back-to-back meetings, or we're doing the podcast and all that sort of stuff, Just a really, really good option, and ultimately quite a low cost option today as well. Like you just get one of those into you. So I definitely think it's got application there as well.
I think also I've seen a few of your pictures as well. It's like a lot of more people are doing that, like on flights.
Yeah.
Also, you're not spending. I think I spend sort of 38 quid in that M&S in Gatwick every single time I go. For what seems to be a coffee and a croissant.
Yeah.
But yeah, I it's bad, but I always see it as market research. But I'll bang at least one every other day, just like in the car, have a few in the car, a few in my day sack, a few at workplace. So yeah.
Well, we speak to our guys often inside the program about developing contingencies. So, if you get too hungry, it's a very normal physiological response to then start thinking quite emotionally. Like, I've not eaten all day. I'll bank all my calories, and then I'll end up smashing a KFC or a Domino's or making pretty bad decisions. So, right, well, that was a controllable variable, but we failed to take control of it.
Yeah.
So in the past, it would have been have a protein bar, but it's an incomplete solution because 200 calories isn't going to scratch the surface, and there's no carbohydrate, there's no real value in that other than the small amount of protein. So it's like, well, having a real meal in your day sack or in your car or in your gym bag, so if you get caught short or if you're in traffic or you've got to bounce straight from one meeting to the next, but you thought you can have a little bit of respite, it's a perfect solution for that.
Yeah,
I sound like I'm on commission. I'm really not, but I've used them in a lot of ways, and I'm like, they're just a good tool, a really good tool.
Thank you
Awesome.
very much.
Cool. And if people want to go onto a site and grab these, what's the best site for them to get them?
So yeah, just through the website. So it's like, again, it's pretty standard sort of like Shopify process at the moment. So, but the most cost efficient way is to certainly subscribe, and then or you could pay full whack in January in Cotswold. At the moment, we've got the endurance pack, which is 2 of each flavour every month. And that's the most cost efficient way. And then we're bringing out the adventure pack, which is 4 of each.
One in front of us?
Yeah, those ones. Yeah, go for it. So that's just.
Yeah, so we saw these before. I don't know if you can see those on camera. I think 4 is a really good number, namely because I tend to do 1 long run a week. So then you've got people doing 1 long run a week with a real meal bar or a hike. Yeah. And then they're getting a new replan coming through.
Yeah. What we've seen is there are a fair few people who are getting on the subscription, which is brilliant, in preparation for their X, and then after that they realise they're sort of stockpiling because they're not getting through 8 a month. So I think hopefully 4 is the sort of perfect number.
Yeah. And again, iteration.
Yeah.
Iteration.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it's been a really, really fun conversation. Thank you for coming up to the north. It is a bit grim up here, but I appreciate the trip, and I'm sure we'll be speaking again in the not too distant.
Cheers, Mark. Really enjoyed it.
Cheers, mate. Thank you. Cool.